Hello everyone, I welcome you to my YouTube channel, Professor Civil Mandal, and here I discuss mainly about civil engineering, and you will find my video lectures related to various topics on civil engineering over here. So, after we are done with the history of road construction, highway planning, geometrical design of highways, traffic engineering, and also the pavement materials and tests related to it, we are now here sufficiently we can now sufficiently now be able to design the pavements after we learn certain tricks in the which will be following in this chapter. So basically this chapter is mainly based on numericals. The link to the numericals is given in the description below, and before we proceed to the numericals we will just go over the theory part and in a quick review process so that the theory is understood in a simpler manner. Basically, I don't have to speak very much about this because the theory isn't the main portion over here. The main portion is the numericals related to it. So without further ado, let's start the pavement design. So highway pavement, as you know, is a structure consisting of superimposed layers of processed materials over natural soil subgrade whose primary function is to distribute the applied load vehicle to the subgrade. So the pavement actually, it distributes the vehicle loads to the subgrade, and it is made up of various superimposed layers. So we know these simple things about the pavement. So regarding design of the pavements, first we know what shall be the requirements. That is, a pavement should have sufficient thickness to distribute the wheel load stresses to a safe value on the subgrade soil, also structurally strong to withstand all types of stresses imposed on it, adequate coefficient of friction to prevent skidding of vehicles. So the surface should have proper coefficient of friction so that the vehicle skidding is avoided. Also, smooth surface to provide comfort to road users even at high speed. So, and the surface of roads are constructed smooth so that a road user isn't facing any type of discrepancy or any type of discomfort while traveling. So smooth surface is ensured to provide comfort to the road users. Next is, it should produce least noise from moving vehicles. So whenever a vehicle is moving, the tire should screech less and produce lesser sounds, or even some jerkings may produce sounds. So the journey must be noiseless, in other words, and thus the pavement should be designed in that manner. Dust proof surface so that traffic is not impaired by reducing visibility, and also the surface should be dust proof. It's not like that whenever a vehicle is traveling, too much of dust is being formed, and thus the vehicles and thus the vehicle pullers are facing difficulty in the visibility, and these things can also cause severe accidents. Next is, the surface shouldn't be should be impervious so that the substrate soil is well protected, and thus being impervious, any type of seepage will be prevented, and thus the subgrade won't be having some kind of direct seepage from the surface, and thus it will be well protected. Long design life with low maintenance cost, and it should have a long design life and minimum of the maintenance cost. So what are the type of pavements? The pavements are of basically two types, that is the flexible and the rigid pavements. In flexible pavements, wheel loads are transferred by grain to grain contact of the aggregate through the granular structure. The flexible pavement having less flexural strength acts like a flexible seat. So Just keep it in mind, the flexural strength is less in the flexible pavements, and the load is transferred by grain to grain, and thus these are all flexible sheets of the road. Example is a bituminous road. On the contrary, the rigid pavements, the wheel loads are transferred to a subgrade soil by flexural strength of the pavement, and pavement acts like a rigid plate. And in case of the rigid pavements, the wheel loads are directly transferred to the subgrade by flexural strength, and they have a high flexural strength as compared to the flexible pavements. And in addition to this, composite pavements are also available. Composite means they will be the mixture of both flexible and rigid pavement materials. A thin layer of flexible pavement over rigid pavement is an ideal with most desirable characteristics. So, flexible pavement is flexible in nature, and rigid pavement provides good flexural strength. So, therefore, a desirable pavement shall be a mixture of thin layer of both of this. That is, a thin layer of pavement over rigid, thin layer of flexible pavement over rigid pavement will be the most desirable thing. Flexible pavements, just see the diagram, there are so many layers in a flexible pavement, and they transmit the wheel load from layer by layer to the subgrade. Whereas for rigid pavement, it is made up of only two layers. The upper layer has a Portland cement concrete layer, and the lower layer is just a base or the sub-base course. So flexible pavements will transmit wheel load stresses to the lower grains by grain to grain transfer, you know that, through the point of contact in the granular structure. So look at the figure, the surface course is 25 to 90 mm. Following the surface course, there is the binder course. A binder material is used for 90 to 100, 50 to 100 mm. Next, following that is the base course, where the aggregates are found, that is 100 to 300 mm. Sub-base course 100 to 300 mm again, and finally the compacted subgrade at the base, below the base, and which is 150 to 300 mm. But for rigid pavements, it's just of two layers. The top layer has a rigid Portland cement concrete layer, and followed by a base or sub-base course in the bottom. Design of flexible pavements. The first process is the group index method. It is a number assigned to the soil based on the physical properties like particle size, liquid limit, and plastic limit. So it is basically a number assigned to a soil based on the physical properties which are mentioned as mentioned here. Varies from 0 to 20, and lower the value, higher is the quality of the subgrade, and greater the value, poor is the subgrade. So lower value of group index means the higher quality of the subgrade, and greater value means the poor quality of subgrade. So it's just the reverse. This is the formula for group index, where A is the percentage of soil passing 0.074 millimeter sieve in excess of 35%, not exceeding 75. B is the percentage of soil passing 0.074 mm sieve in excess of 15%, not exceeding 55. C is the liquid limit in excess of 40, and D is the plasticity index in excess of 10. So we are given the four variables, that is A, B, C, D, and these are determined by various soil tests like the plasticity limit, plasticity index, the liquid limit, and again the sieve analysis of soil. So by sieve analysis we will get the value of A and B, and by liquid limit and plasticity index test we will get the values of C and D. Next comes the California bearing ratio method. In the California bearing ratio method, there are few steps, few set of formulas which you need to know. Firstly is the CVR values, which is load on sample upon standard load times the 100. So for the severe values shall be kept in mind that for 2.5 mm penetration standard load, that is, it should be 1370 kg, and for 5 mm penetration standard load shall be 2055 kg. Thickness of pavement is given by this formula or by simplified version as this one, where P is the wheel load in kg, CBR is the California bearing ratio, small p is the tire pressure in kg per centimeter square, A is the area of contact in centimeter square, and A is given by pi a square, where A is the radius of contact in centimeter. So the number of vehicles per day for design, that is capital A, is given by this formula, P times 1 plus R whole to the power n plus 10, where A is the number of vehicles at the end of design period, P is the number of vehicles per day at least count, R is the annual rate of increase of heavy vehicles, and N is the number of years. So the final formula for CBR method of pavement design by cumulative standard axle load, and this is the most popular formula and widely used formula. It is that NS is the cumulative number of standard axle load, and it is given by 365 A prime, where A prime is the number of commercial vehicles per day when construction is completed considering the number of lanes. 365 A prime times 1 plus R to the power n minus 1 whole upon R times FD. So what is N? N is the design life of pavement taken as 10 to 15 years. F is the vehicle damage factor, and D is the lane distribution factor. So whenever you are solving a question related to CBR methods, these values will be given, and we need to find the value of the cumulative number of standard axle load. Next is the triaxial method. Look over the big formula over here. T is equal to under root of 3pxy upon 2 pi es delta whole square minus a square whole times es upon ep whole to the power 1 by 3. T is the thickness of pavement required in centimeter, P is the wind load in kg, X is the traffic coefficient, Y is the rainfall coefficient, ES is the modulus of elasticity of subgrade soil in kg per centimeter square, and EP is the modulus of elasticity of pavement material in kg per centimeter square. A is the radius of contact area in centimeter, and del is the design deflection, that is 0.25 centimeter. So this is all about the triaxial method, but one thing you must keep it in mind, that this particular formula is true for two-layer system of pavements. Note that the above relation is true for two-layer system of pavements. For single layer in the system, that ES shall be equal to EP. So for a single, this particular formula is true for two-layer system, but for a single layer system, ES shall be equal to EP. And if it is so, then this thing gets cancelled, and the formula only reduces to this much for a single layer. Also, if you have a layer system, the thicknesses T1 and T2 will be given by EP2 upon EP1 whole to the power 1 by 3 if the pavement material is in layers. Next is the Burmeister method. For Burmeister method, he considered number of layers, and based on displacement equation for flexible pavement, this is the formula, and for rigid pavement, this is the formula. And what he took into account is that P is the yielded pressure, A is the radius of loaded area, ES is the subgrade modulus, and F2 is the deflection factor. So next we move on to the design of rigid pavement, and this was pioneered by Sir H.M. Westergaard, and he provided the rational treatment of the rigid pavement analysis. So modulus of subgrade reaction is given by K is equal to P upon delta, where P is the deflection taken equal to 0.125 centimeter and del is the pressure sustained by the rigid plate of 75 centimeter. So now where this K shall be used, this modulus of subgrade reaction K shall be used in this bigger formula, that is the relative stiffness of the slab to subgrade, and this is given by L, and there EH cube upon 12K times 1 minus mu square whole to the power 4, where E is the modulus of elasticity of cement concrete in kg per centimeter square, H is the slab thickness in centimeter, mu is the Poisson's ratio of concrete, that is 0.15, K is the modulus of subgrade reaction in kg per centimeter cube. And wheel load stresses, the Westergaard stress equation is given by this. For interior loading, SI is given as 0.316 P upon H square times 4 log 10 L upon B plus 1.069. The edge loading is given by SE is equal to 0.572 P upon H square times 4 log 10 L by B plus 0.359. And similarly we have the corner loading. So wheel load stresses in three places, that is in the interior part, the edge and the corner, is given by these three formulas. Here SI, SC and SE are the maximum stresses at interior, edge and corner, and given by kg per centimeter square. H is the thickness of the slab in centimeter. The final topic is the Marshall mix design developed by Sir Bruce Marshall. The Marshall mix design method consists mainly of the following steps. So let's read out the steps. That is, first is the determination of physical properties, size and gradation of aggregates. So first we need to know the physical properties, the size and gradation of the aggregates before we start the test. Next we select the bitumen. So actually Marshall mix design is basically a design mix test, and this is done with the correlation of both the aggregate and the bitumen. So both the properties of bitumen and aggregate is considered while doing the Marshall mix design. Next is the selection of types of after the types of bitumen is selected, prepare the initial samples each with bitumen content. For example, 3 samples are made, each at 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6 and 6.5 percentage, and asphalt by dry weight for a total of 15 samples. Suppose if you use asphalt, we can use asphalt or you can use bitumen. There should be at least 2 samples above and 2 below the estimated optimum bitumen content. Again it should be bitumen because we have selected bitumen as the aggregate. If you are not using bitumen, you can also use asphalt as one of the aggregate. So the following graphs are plot, that is the unit weight versus bitumen content, Marshall stability versus bitumen content, and aggregate void field versus bitumen content, flow value versus bitumen content, and air voids versus bitumen content. Finally, determine the bitumen content which corresponds to air void of 4%. So these are the one more step, determine the properties at this optimum bitumen content by reference with the graphs. So we will get 5 graphs like this, and we will determine the optimum bitumen content with the reference of all these 5 graphs. Compare each of these values against the design requirements, and if all comply with the design requirements, then the selected optimum bitumen content is acceptable. Otherwise, the mixture should be redesigned. So after we compare these values against the design requirements, if the values comply, if the values satisfy with the design requirements, then only we shall proceed with the selected optimum bitumen content. If not, then the mixture shall be redesigned. So first the percent air voids is taken V percent, that is GT minus GM upon GM times 100, where GM is the bulk density or mass density of the specimen and GT is the theoretical specific gravity of the mixture, and GT is given by this formula, that is the and thus you can guess it is the nothing but the specific gravity formula, and therefore GT is known as the theoretical specific gravity of the mixture. So what are these W's and G's? W1 is the percent by weight of coarse aggregate in total mix. W2 is the percent by weight of fine aggregates in total mix. W3 is for the weight of filler in total mix. W4 is percent by weight of bitumen in total mix. And G1, G2, G3 and G4 are their respective specific gravities. So percent voids in mineral aggregate VMA is given by this formula. This is the amount of voids in the mineral aggregate. This is given by this formula, where VB is the volume of air voids in percentage and VB is the volume of bitumen in percentage, and given by GM times W4 upon G4. So what was W4 and G4? That was the specific gravity and percent by weight of bitumen in the total mix. This is given by GM times W4 upon G4. The percent voids filled with bitumen VFB is given by this formula, 100 times VB upon VMA. So this was all about the pavement design, but more important, this was all about the theory of the pavement design, actually I should say precisely, but the numerical portion is the more important portion as compared to this one, because theory is like everyone can do it, but the numerical is the most important thing. So the numerical, which is in a separate video, the link of which is given in the description, please go through the numerical just after you have a quick review of this theory, and the link for notes is also given in the description. Please like and share my video. Also subscribe if you are new to the channel. Thank you.